Last session of the day, so go ahead and find a seat. This talk has the word launch in it, so it's probably going to be excellent. So let's put our hands together and welcome Amandine and Ștefan for the Element X launch.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're surviving after this excellent day, and you probably all hit all your steps targets going up and down the stairs all day. So at least Matrix Conference keeps you fit. If you don't know me, my name is Amandine Le Pape. I'm co-founder of Matrix with Matthew, and I am one of the 4 guardians of the Matrix.org Foundation. I am also the co-founder and COO of Element, the company that the founding team of Matrix set up to be able to commercialize some Matrix services so that we could continue to fund the work we were doing for Matrix. And just in the end, the only thing we want is to make sure Matrix is successful and our vision is actually realized. So that's why we're here. Amongst the 2 main products that Element is doing, you've heard about a bunch if you've been in the various talks today. One of them is the Element Server Suite, which is the professionalized version, professionalized server with enterprise-grade features that we developed. Daniel did a great presentation at 1 p.m. or something early afternoon. And the other one is Element, the app itself. And because we created Element because we needed a glossy application. If you're trying to grow a communication network, you need users on it, so you need them to have a nice way to use the network, to communicate, and grow it. So we are here today because we are launching Element X. Element X is our full rewrite of our iOS and Android applications, and I'm going to walk you through the changes we've done, and more accurately, I have brought 2 of our experts who can tell you all the details of why it's really good. So, if we go back in time, September 2023, last year, we had the Element X project, and the status was ignition. Since then, at that time, it was pretty minimal. You couldn't create an account, and you really needed other apps in parallel to be able to use it. And 1 year later, the status is takeoff. So here we go. We have it. It's out there. It is now the app that everyone, all Element users should be using, whether you are a new user, whether you have already 2,000 rooms on your account, just install it and use it because it's going to change your life on your mobile usage. You can now run it as a standalone app. Earlier, the Ignition version really needed the standalone next to it because it didn't support all the features. You couldn't create an account. And now Element X does all the basic stuff. In the past, we know that Element users face some challenges, but the idea is that now we have fixed it. So here it is. And this is where the fun starts. This is going to work. Let's see. Yay, screen mirroring. Good. OK, here we go. Element X, super simple. Just 1 single room list, and then you can filter out of it if you just want to reduce the things you're looking at. We have prioritized the messenger use case because in the end, everyone in the workplace are using WhatsApp. This is who we are competing with when you're trying to deploy something sovereign. So you have all the nice bubbles. As Matthew mentioned this morning, the crypto will be invisible. The transition is in progress, and the idea is you don't have some weird warnings, weird shields, or weird terminology coming in out there. It should be completely transparent. And as we said, and I'm going to repeat it because it's very important, there will be a point where the messages sent to device which you have not verified when you logged into are not going to be decrypted. So if you log into a new device and you don't verify it against others or with your key, then your messages are not going to be decrypted. So meanwhile, what you can do, you have really nice formatting with the rich text editor, if I knew how to type. And I'm really not able to type. OK, so nice text editor. Is it? Yeah. You can obviously share your location. Look, we're in Germany. That's unusual. You still have all the voice messages that can be sent, and then you can, when you listen back to them, you can navigate across voice here. Messages. And if you send them and you listen to them, you can also navigate through the message itself. You also have permalinks that has been implemented, so you can change between rooms or not. This is the one. And if I click on it, I just jump straight into the room. We also have implemented some moderation features when you can go and determine how you can do the moderation, and then I can go directly into my mobile app, and if Andrew hasn't been good and says he didn't like donuts, I can just kick him out of here. Well, donuts are good, right? You can't criticize. All the pills have been implemented as well. So, for example, if I say, hi, Amsha, and then I click on her name, I see her profile, and I can also go straight into our DMs. And this is where even more fun is going to start, because I learned from Matthew that dangerous demos are the best. And I am going to say, hello, Amsha, and call her, hopefully. And we get straight into an element call. And hopefully she will even reply. And we say, hi, Amsha, can you hear me? Hello. OK, I'm going to do a quick sound check because we haven't done any tests. Are we good? Say something. Say hi, Amsha.
Hello, can people hear me?
Yes, perfect. This is magnificent. So here you can see element call fully embedded into element X. You can have a nice picture-in-picture, and then you can go back to your chat, and you still have the nice picture-in-picture back to the room list, and you still have it, despite all the layers, OK? And I can even leave the background the app, and Amsha is still here. Cool. So, Amsha, whilst you are here, you will be able to tell us a bit more about how you've been working on the design and the user experience for Element X, right? Shall we try that?
Sure. Yeah, this is a totally impromptu presentation, and I just whipped it up as we were talking, obviously.
Right.
Can people see me?
Yeah, we can see your screen, but people are only seeing it from the screen share of my mobile. So what I'm going to do is actually join the call from Element Web. Probably mute here. Join the call. And here we go. We now have, I'm trying to check if there's a feedback or anything. But from here, Amsha, you'll be able to demonstrate everything. I'm going to leave the room from my phone. And here we go, a fully embedded element call into Element Web. Over to you.
Lovely. Can people hear me just fine? Yeah. Lovely. OK. Hi, my name is Amsha, and I lead design at Element. And of course, I'm really sad that I couldn't be there today. But this design language 2.0 at Element has been it's taken years for us to get there. And I have the privilege to share some insights with you guys today. Now, to move forward, I have to look back and show you where it all started. These are the apps that we had before Element X even started. And as you can see, there were lots of UI elements competing for attention over here, and that was leading to a high cognitive load. We had highly complicated technical wording on one side. We also had an interface that was taking away from the content, i.e. the messages, although you can't really see any messages over here because you couldn't decrypt them. And along with that, you also had low contrast of text. Now, on the Android side specifically, you can see that it wasn't black on white, but it was gray on white, which makes it pretty hard to read. Along with that, internally, we were having a hard time with the inconsistencies in the platform. Again, on the left is iOS, and on the right is Android. It's the settings page, and it looks completely different on both, which meant that while we were designing things, it was so overwhelming for us as well to work on it. And lastly, we had an audit, accessibility audit in 2023, and we found out that, generally we were passing on, screen reader tests, voiceovers, things like that. But visually, on text contrast, on button contrast, on things like that, we were failing. And so clearly there was a room for improvement. And so we set out to make this design language 2.0 for Element. For user goals, we wanted to make sure that things were intuitive so that we were building on known design standards. Things were clear, so it would be easy to use and understand, and it would be accessible. And it would be polished so that, it would spark some joy, like Marie Kondo would say. And on internal goals, we wanted to make sure that design would be the differentiator that Element has over other clients. We also wanted to make sure that design team could work efficiently so that we were working smarter and not harder, and so that it was scalable and adaptable as time passed by so that we wouldn't need a design language 3.0 in 2 years. And that's basically meant that we've had to revisit a lot of our components, from typography to color to icons to our component libraries to voice and tone of the app and the branding as well. Now, if I talk about color specifically, this is where our design stood previously. What you see at the bottom left is the green that we had in the screenshots up top. And you can see that while for standard vision, this works, it kind of fails for for moderate or low vision, which is where we want to be. Now, to be efficient in low vision, you kind of need a high contrast. I won't get into a lot of design nerdy details here, but just trust me when I say that our green was not accessible and something had to be done. And so we tried a lot of different color approaches, and eventually we landed at a monochromatic approach, which would be a fully black and white interface with no accent color, but using red and green sparingly to show success or error, and using various shades of gray to show secondary states to tertiary states, but mostly relying on black and white because it's high contrast. Now, while the advantage of this approach might be that things are clean, clear, accessible, minimal, a designer's dream, basically. The problem was that it was getting a bit boring, a bit brutalist, and, our personality of Element was not coming through. And so if you followed Element X's journey over the past year and a half, you might have seen we started with black and white, but now we have a bit more personality in it and a bit of pop of color. How we've achieved that is by adding a bit of our branding elements into the app. Now, if you've seen our social media posts or blog posts, you might be familiar with this design language that we've had. It uses, a lovely high contrast gradient. We have this glossy effect, a transparency in our illustrations that we use, which basically hones on our company's goals of, being transparent, being honest, while being playful as well. Now, we've combined all of these elements into Compound, that is our design system, basically, which is accessible, dynamic, and it has a lovely set of guidelines, which are accessible on compound.element.io, that you all can check out. It covers things in a good depth, I would say. It covers our cross-platform strategy as well as platform-specific elements. covers things like typography, but also covers things like how should we write, what is good UI, what is good UI copy, how to write error messages, and things like that. So do give it a check out. Now, a lot of what we spoke about earlier is the visual side of design, but as we all know, design is way beyond that. It's UX as well. So I want to talk a bit more about that. Now, when we started working on Element X, I was really excited to be building something from scratch all over again. And it gave us an opportunity to be really intentional about our design choices. And we kept a few design principles in mind while making this to help us guide through this effort. We wanted to make sure that we were ensuring high quality on the app by giving each and every feature a whole lot of love and consideration. We wanted to ensure that users had a good time on Element so that using Element would be effortless. And we wanted to make sure that we were not reinventing the wheel and we were using familiar patterns you could truly focus on so that we could truly focus on our superpowers, our differentiators in our features. And yeah, so that's basically meant using a lot of familiar native patterns. On iOS, that means using HIG guidelines, and on Android, it means using Material 3 guidelines. So it all helps us stay familiar, and it really helps us make you feel right at home in your element. And we've done all of that while maintaining good amounts of consistency between iOS and Android. This has been mostly because this helps us go from one platform to another quite easily. So it has a cross-platform consistency, but also the design team is a 4-person team, and it really helps us not get overwhelmed while designing for things. So it keeps a good uniformity in place. So what's next? We know that there are a few features that we still need to build on Element X, which Amandine will talk more about. But design-wise, we also want to make sure that we're adding a lot more delight to the app, through illustrations, through motion, through sound, my favorite. I wish we get to sound at some point of time. And along with that, we also want to make sure that we keep improving accessibility of our products, not only mobile, but web as well. So I want to end this with design is always a work in progress, just like you and me and the humanity. It never ends. But feedback is a gift that keeps on giving. And so thank you for all your support and feedback that you've given over the years. And please do keep it coming because it really helps us make this product better. Thank you.
Thank you, Amsha. That was great. I'm going to hang up on you. Sorry, you'll have to follow the streaming. But thanks. And if people have questions, we'll relay at the end. No problem.
Lovely. Bye.
So design is amazing, but it's not going to be the thing that makes the app beautifully performant. So I'm going to welcome Ștefan, who is hiding here and who is going to tell us all about what's happening under the hood.
Absolutely. Does this thing work? Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Ștefan. I lead iOS development at Element. And for the past 3 years or so, close to 3 years now, my main focus has been Element X. What started off as a small project in which we wanted to test if we can build a new timeline in SwiftUI, quickly turned into something quite a lot bigger. Element X is now feature-rich. It's stable. It's familiar. It's basically the perfect mobile daily driver. But more importantly, at least from my point of view, Element X is really easy to maintain and it's joy to work on, which impacts my daily life. When we started off, we knew we had to be ambitious. We wanted to build something that was going to be the foundation for client work for years to come. And there were a lot of unknowns, of course, so we had to make the right choices. We had to choose things that help us keep that base going forward. Fortunately, though, there were some things we did know. We did know that we wanted to move to the Rust SDK because sharing code between platforms was no longer feasible. We wanted to, re-implementing code on every single different platform was no longer feasible. We wanted to share all of that. We knew we had to drop Objective-C, which was out of the door, and switch everything to Swift or even Rust. We had to rethink the UX, like Amsha just said, and we wanted to use our own specific element design system. We had to go away from UIKit because SwiftUI was now taking over. UI interfaces have become very complex over the last couple of years, and SwiftUI helps a lot with that. We knew we had to adopt it. It was still kind of new, so there were a lot of unknowns there. We had to work around its quirks to use its strong suits. So that was a problem. And then we knew we wanted Element X to be fast. And that came in the form of Sliding Sync and now Simplified Sliding Sync. As a side note, I'm an iOS guy, so I'm going to keep the focus on iOS. But Android, they use Kotlin and they use Jetpack Compose, but they also use the Rust SDK and a lot of the tools we're using, and they deliver to the same levels of quality like we do. Okay, so how do we go about building an app that's easy to scale, easy to test, easy to maintain? We started off with an architecture that we knew, MVVMC. We used it in the old app. Almost everybody knows it at this point. It's stable, it's solid, it brings absolutely no surprises. You can build small apps in it, you can build big apps in it. It's just the perfect choice. What we did on top of it, though, is we introduced the concept of flow coordinators, backed by state machines. And we did that in order to guarantee that the application is always in the correct state at any point in time. If not, the state machine will freak out and it's going to crash. And we enforce that by enabling assertions in production. So every time something goes wrong, something that we don't expect, something that is not supposed to happen, the application will crash. We will get reported. We will get that report on Sentry or the Apple tooling, and we will act on it accordingly. As an example, on Wednesday, and I'm not proud of this, we introduced a regression in which if you tapped an alias twice, it would try to push the same screen twice, and it crashed. And we got informed about that, and on Thursday afternoon, the app was out on the App Store with the fix, because we take no chances with bugs, and we fix them as soon as they pop up. And if I can paraphrase Matthew, that was scary, because he hadn't seen a bug in a long time, a crash in a long time.
The first crash in about 4 months.
Yeah, exactly. We take them very seriously. Okay, so this is not the right slide. We talked about this. Right, the picture. The picture is the app coordinated state machine in the summer of 2022. It was supposed to, that was how big the app was at that point. That's all of it. Nowadays, all of the leaves, all of the screens, they all have their own flow coordinator, which they verify every single part of the application. You cannot go anywhere without going through one of these state machines. And it wouldn't fit on a slide. It wouldn't fit in a couple of slides at the moment. Okay. And then we turned our attention to the UI layer, where we wanted to use SwiftUI. We ported over a version of the system that we used in the old application. We used it for the newer features like polls and location sharing and voice messages, and we were very happy with how it turned out. The view state is nicely decoupled, and only a read-only version of it is passed to the view to keep the bugs low and to make sure you don't change state from when you're not supposed to. And it worked really well. We're using it to this day. It's awesome. What we did on top of it, though, is that we wrote our own custom UI navigation stack. So it's very reminiscent of what UIKit used to do. We have a navigation stack coordinator, a navigation split coordinator, and they helped us migrate this navigation up to the aforementioned flow coordinators so that we can couple the state machine to the presentation of the UI, and we know exactly what's being shown on screen at every single point in time. Okay, and the fact that we had control over the full navigation stack meant that we could build the features that SwiftUI didn't quite support yet, or didn't support at all. For example, one of the final features when running the app on the iPad or the Mac, for that matter, and you have the two side-by-side things, if you switch to a smaller screen, they need to collapse into each other, just like on the iPhone. And this architecture allowed us to have full control over what goes where and build a full navigation stack out of those two screens and then put it back where it used to be if you go into full screen again. Okay, So with a good architecture in place, it was time to turn our attention to testing. And I truly believe that with testing, more is more. So we did a lot of it, right? We have plain unit tests. We have snapshot unit tests on top of SwiftUI previews. We have automation tests with snapshots. And all of those use mocks we generate and can generate for any object in our hierarchy. And then we have UI automation integration tests, which basically run the whole thing with real users. This is, of course, only the tests. These are, of course, only the tests we do on the iOS side. As you probably know, testing is loved throughout Element. You probably already heard how well tested the Rust SDK itself is. But we also have other projects like Complement Crypto, which tests the crypto stack. And if you haven't heard about it before, you can go see Keegan's talk tomorrow, I believe. So yeah, we love tests. Okay, so going through them. Unit tests. Here. I have two screens here. All right, so unit tests, not a lot to say there. We love them. Everybody should. As such, we went and we built, we wrote quite a few of them. We have 800 now. We don't plan on stopping. We'll just keep on doing that. And they work really great with the generated mocks we do. We can generate mocks at every single point in the hierarchy, so it means it's very easy to set up a test that just tests the view model or just this service or whatever, because writing the mock is really easy. It's generated for us. You just put some values in there and go ahead and use it. Then we have the snapshot tests. Those are real snapshots from the app. I just put them in a picture over there. So every time you build a screen in SwiftUI, you can choose to build a preview for it. It's going to help you design it and build it, and it's going to help you make sure that all the states are there and it looks exactly like in the designs. But where the snapshot tests come in is that we use those same previews and we take little screenshots of them and we compare them to future runs to make sure that the design does not change in between versions of the application. We want to make sure that we don't change the designs by mistake, that they don't change by, just because you change something somewhere else. It guarantees that everything is the way you expect it to. And on top of that, we can also run them with different languages. For example, we can run them with German. We all know that German is kind of verbose, and we want to make sure that those screens look fine when you have a word this big, right? And we do that. We generate the screenshots, we compare them by hand. It's awesome. The problem with snapshot tests, though, is that they don't test interactions, right? They're fixed. So that's where UI automation tests come in. They build on top of the same mocks we had for all the other parts of the app, but here we group together multiple screens. It doesn't need to be the whole app, it's just parts of the app, and we go ahead and we interact with it as if it were a real application running with mock data, right? And on top of that, we also take snapshots to make sure that this looks fine as well. One example of that would be the timeline. We had really big problems building a timeline in SwiftUI that would preserve its content offset when you backpaginate or when the screen rotates or when the keyboard comes up. So we rewrote it like 4 times, and when it was finally stable, we went ahead and wrote one of these tests for it, which literally creates a room screen with mocked messages and goes and backpaginates through them and then takes snapshots to make sure that, hey, this still works in between OS versions and the system configurations and whatever else might happen to your app. Right, and then last but not least, we have the integration tests. All the tests we had so far are good. They help us in a lot of situations, but all of them use mock data, which is fine, but up to a point. At some point, you will want to check that the app indeed works correctly with the real backend. And that's what we do here. We use a real user. In this particular case, not pictured in the video because that's my account. So in the real integration tests we run, we use one of our huge test accounts and we run it against matrix.org. And if that works, so it does like it's sign in from scratch and it goes through the main application flows and it ensures that everything works. And if stuff works with that big account on matrix.org, chances are it's absolutely fine. And another thing we do at that same point is we gather some performance stats. So we track how long does it take for the app to start up? How long does it take to restore your session? Or how long does it take to see your first rooms? Or how long does it take to do the initial sync, the first sync when you restart the app? And we plot all of those in Sentry. It's really useful to see that things are consistent and they don't change. And another thing we do with this data is that we gather it from our real users. The users that opted into analytics, which we thank for doing that, their data goes into here as well, and it gets averaged out with the data we get from integration tests, which turns out to be a lot more useful than what we were doing previously, in which this test would have run on a fixed home server. This way, it runs on Matrix, crypto's happening, all the things are happening, and we can guarantee that almost everybody will probably still have good performance. Did the video run?
Yes.
It did, right? Cool. Right. And then, last but not least, we have tools. We have a lot of tools, but some of them really make the night and day difference with what we had before. For example, for Element X, we switched to Xcode Cloud, which not only fixed security concerns around signing certificates and who gets to sign the application, it also took a process that usually took around half a day to 20 minutes and one button click. If you want to release the app, you click a button and there it's out. That's it. And we also use Xcode Cloud to deliver nightly builds every night. We use it to deliver test flight builds. We use it to deliver to the App Store. And we also use it to deliver our enterprise versions of the application. With the same exact scripts, it just works and never let us down. We, of course, use GitHub Actions for everything else, to run all the tests I just showed you, to update translations, to all the little things that we need to do run on GitHub Actions. We do danger checks on PRs to make sure they respect certain rules. We use Fastlane to configure all these 4 flavors of the application and all the other things you do before you build the app. We use SwiftLint and SwiftFormat to make sure our syntax is correct and it still makes sense. Sonar Cloud to track common bugs and problems. We use CodeCov to track our coverage, and actually, I think I forgot to say it, but our coverage now is at 82%. It's really, really good. This is, overall coverage, so iOS plus all the other things we use, but awesome. We switched to local lazy for Element X because we wanted product and developers and the community and paid translators to have one single shared source of truth and to make sure that our translation still makes sense in the grand scheme of things. We have custom Git hooks, and we have scripts written in Swift and scripts written in Rust. But more importantly, we share code, right? We share the Rust SDK, which has proven itself to be tremendous at this point. We share Compound, which Amsha just talked about. We share our analytics events, and we even share the rich text editor, which is, again, another project written in Rust with iOS and Android bindings. I do realize this is a lot of information, so if you have questions about it, please come see me. I obviously love talking about it. Otherwise, to sum up, I think we've made a lot of good choices here, and I think Element X is in a really good place. The growing pains are behind us. All those unknowns are now kind of known, so I imagine the sky is the limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. So what is next? Well, you can use it today. You just go log in with your existing account. You create your account on any server which is having the Matrix authentication service MAS deployed on it. Of course, Element Server Suite fully supported, and matrix.org will only have MAS at the end of the year, but you can still create an account on it thanks to the quick workaround that Matthew talked about this morning again as well. And otherwise, you can experiment on beta.matrix.org if you want to really play against the real MAS setup. What remains? Threads, spaces. As I said, we focused on the messenger use case, so all the collaboration features are not there yet. You can see, I forgot to show it in the demo, but you can see when a message is sent in a thread. But if you really want, you cannot display the thread itself, so it will be there. We're going to continue improving the UX, so the invisible crypto will come, media management, how many people are been using Element X and failing to slide between their pictures, feature parity with Element Web, because there's still a bunch of things that haven't made it yet. And it's not tracking your own verified devices, but tracking. And we also need a proper UI for joining rooms. So Element X iOS does support the /join, but But otherwise, yeah, it's not fully there yet. Beyond that, well, as Ștefan says, the sky is the limit. So we will be retiring the legacy applications as soon as we have the feature equivalents, as soon as we have migrated all our customers to Element X. We also need Element Web to be promoted into Element X Web. Element Call, feature parity with GT and Zoom, etc. Anyone? That would be fun. Element Server Suite, faster, better, always. And I know that there is one specific feature like people and content search, which has been missing. And I've heard some requests for it. So it's written down there. But yeah, there is always more to do. The app always needs to evolve and get better. In the meantime, well, go and tell the world. The new generation of Element is here. It's great. Install it and invite your friends. And thank you. And I also wanted to thank one of our, like the biggest sponsor of Element X, which is BWI here, who has been funding a lot of these developments. So yeah, thank you.
Excellent. I'm going to start with a question from the Matrix chat room, which is, when is multiple accounts coming?
Limit sharing.
Look, an eagle. Yeah. I'm not sure it's top of the list right now, but yes, it's missing. It's been missing in Element forever. But yeah, I don't think we have a specific time. Oh, Matthew, do you want to reply to it?
So, secret that nobody knows, so don't tell anybody, is Element X Android already has it, right?
No. They do now.
What's the reality?
Oh, no. We were able to make it in one day, I think. But yeah, it's more, we need a product direction here. It's not only building multi-account, but then we need to think about how you manage notifications coming from different accounts. So it's not that easy. Technically, it's easy for us. The Rust SDK is ready for that. We designed the apps to make it easy to happen. But yeah, we want to have a great UX in Element X, so that's why we need to take some time to make it right, basically.
Mm-hmm. So if that wasn't a tease, I don't know what is. So yeah, hopefully soon.
Yeah, and another question, there was a lot of words told about iOS. What about Android?
Basically, as Ștefan says, getting...
The feature state, in particular.
The feature state, well, it's parity right
Same,
now,
yeah.
right?
Exactly the same.
Oh, okay.
It's the same.
I only talked about iOS because I'm the iOS tech lead. I don't do Android, but it's the same. They do the same things we do at the same scale and quality.
Because for the last 3 years, we had Android massively overlooked, like second-class citizen, effectively.
So
looks like it's the
same,
first. It's the first time we get like, proper support on both platforms.
So the thing is, we also used iOS as the trailblazer. So iOS hit all the walls, and then Android could come and catch up. So that's why it's always been one step behind, because we've experimented with iOS first, and then Android has been catching up. But right now we're pretty much feature parity, and it's the same setup in terms of how we build it. As Amsha say, design, everything is running in parallel, etc., etc.
And it's all Rust.
Yeah. Anyway, it's all over the Rust SDK under the hood.
I actually have two questions. First of all, I learned about Neoboard today. How is it with widgets? Are they backwards compatible with, well, the new Element X?
So that's something which is still on the roadmap as well. Same thing, I don't have an ETA specifically. We're still building it, but it's, yeah, that's one of the need to catch up with Element, feature priority with Element Web.
Okay. Secondly, for the sliding sync, I'm not really sure how it works yet. Currently, I'm still working with Matrix.js SDK, and I have tons of bots which are in thousands of rooms. If one of them deconnects and tries to reconnect, it can actually DOS my Synapse. So how does that work? Because the synapse can actually take minutes in trying to send a response, which gets timed out in both the client and the proxy, and it just breaks everything if they try to reconnect. Is there some pagination in the initial sync, or some stream, or?
So I can take it. Sliding sync is my fault originally. So the idea is that it basically paginates the room list incrementally. It used to physically slide the paginated window up and down as you would scroll. Turns out that was a bad idea. And so we now have simplified sliding sync, which effectively just paginates in the background. So your bot with the 20,000 rooms would just grab the first 20 and then possibly not even expand it. If it doesn't care about the other rooms, if it only cares about new events, then either it will wait and see as they come in, or in the background it will just keep making it larger. So on Element X, when you launch, the very first thing it does is to get the most recent page of rooms, which gives you that instant sync, and then in the background it pulls in the other ones, and in future we will also paginate incremental sync. So it's all pretty new stuff. Read the MSC. And I'm very glad that Ștefan has been hiding from this at the application.
Other questions?
So Element X only supports Element Call for video and audio calls.
Yes.
But Element Web still treats Element Call as beta. So like going with new users, like I have friends who use Element and now we use Jitsi, like it's still the default. And I enable the beta, they can't enable the beta, or they don't know how to. So how is this being handled? If someone has Element X, will it show up automatically, or is Element Call rolling out of beta for Element Web?
So right now in Element Web, you can start either a legacy call or an element call in a room. If you have someone doing an element call from Element X in a room, you will be able, like I did, basically, you can join it.
Is that by default? Because I think you have to join it.
No, it's not.
You don't have
It's
to.
under a feature flag, right? Yeah.
It's not by default.
It's by default. Well, the options are available on Element Web and Desktop nightly and develop.element.io. There is currently a fight going on about whether we enable it for everybody so that you can actually interoperate between Element Call on Web and X. And it's a chicken and egg situation. You don't want poor, confused people trying to talk to people on Element X who haven't yet come through to Element X. The key thing we're missing is capability negotiation to say, look, I want to be contacted on Element X, and then the right thing will happen when you hit the call button. But unfortunately, we haven't had time to land the cat and egg thing because it depends probably on the extensible profile MSC that Tom Foster has put forwards. So basically, it missed the deadline. So hopefully, we'll get it turned on real soon now. If not, use develop.element.io or Element Desktop Nightly, and then you get it anyway.
Okay.
I have a question from the chat. It says, so when do we start? When can we start using Element X with SSO like Google?
But they.
It's up to them.
Social login,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
and Element
Social login,
X.
yes.
Sorry, I'll keep
Please.
the random Matrix 2.0 things. So you can already set up Matrix authentication service today so that it can delegate through to an upstream OIDC SSO provider like Google or Facebook or Apple or whoever it is. We don't yet have it deployed on matrix.org because it's a massive pain to migrate the 10 million accounts we have on matrix.org, of which about half are social login ones, into this crazy, high-volume, complex matrix authentication service. So if you're running your own server, you can configure it right now, and it will do the right thing. If you're waiting to be able to log in with your Google SSO on Element X against matrix.org, you're going to have to wait another few months until we've actually migrated your account over from the bad old days of legacy matrix auth to the shiny new utopia of next-gen auth.
I think we have time for one more question.
You mentioned briefly Element X Web. There are not a lot of details about this. It's the first time I've heard about this. Is this new? Is this something?
Yeah, it's basically make Element Web as a line in terms of design, UX, some of the features and the snappiness as Element X. So they have the kind of refresh we've had on mobile, do the same on web.
But it's still like it's just starting. It's new.
Yeah, it's.
It's going to be faster than that with the Rust SDK. hopefully.
Okay, the talk with a title that had a launch in it did not disappoint. Let's give Amandine, Ștefan, and Amsha a round of applause.